This is my most insane tutorial ever. I rearranged the office. So all the stuff over here is pretty much the same, but you get round to here, and I've got a new desk. Actually, it's not a new desk, it is the old desk that I've always had. I've just moved it to this position, so sometimes I might film videos at the desk. Today though, I am going to be sharing with you a very exciting piece of magic that works well on camera, so feel free to use this on social media or YouTube or wherever. This is the Zero Zone. For this trick, all you're going to need is a marker pen and a card with a hole in it. Watch closely. Watch the marker pen. I was not joking when I said that this is my most insane tutorial ever. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but hopefully at this point you are looking forward to learning this piece of magic. Two little disclaimers before we actually begin this. The first one is that I am ill, so apologies about that if my voice sounds a bit weird. I am ill at the moment. Don't worry, I will hopefully survive this. The second disclaimer is that the trick you're going to learn today only works on camera. Now don't be too disheartened, that's definitely not a word. Don't be too disappointed because performing magic on camera is just another way of performing magic. Camera magic does not kill live performances. That is complete rubbish. I am a live performer. It is my job to be a live performer. That's my job, professional magician. So, this does not kill the live art of magic. It is just another way of doing it. And yes, this will only work on camera, so apologies to all the people that only perform live magic. Hopefully you will still enjoy this and enjoy this rather unique method of doing this trick. It is so visual, it's so good, and it's something that I've come up with very recently. It uses a gimmick, and it also uses some video editing. I'm going to guide you through the whole process of creating this video that will hopefully look amazing on your social media. And if ever you do post it on social media, make sure to tag me because I would love to see what you guys come up with using this base idea. This is basically the buttery biscuit base, and you guys are going to add a load of stuff to it. I already know that it's going to be far better than anything I could come up with. So, hopefully you are ready to dive right in and learn the Zero Zone. If you're going to want to perform the trick exactly as you just saw it in the intro, then here is what you're going to need. You're going to need some tape, you're going to need a playing card, you're going to need a marker, you're going to need some scissors, probably shouldn't throw those, and you're also going to need this. This is actually sort of green foam. Okay, so you might not have green foam lying around because that is a pretty weird thing to have around, but you can also have some green card, although just for me personally, I thought the foam worked slightly better. I don't know why, but yeah, you're going to need something green that you can cut up. So it might be a Christmas card that is from a relative that you don't mind cutting up their Christmas cards. Just something green. It does not matter what it is, so long as it is roughly the size of a playing card, or you can cut it into the size of a playing card. So, here is how you're going to construct the gimmick. To give you a basic idea of how you're going to use these items to create the gimmick, here is one I made earlier in very Blue Peter fashion. So essentially, it is this. It is a piece of tape attached to a playing card with a hole in it, and a green flap that covers that hole from the other side. That is essentially the gimmick. It's really important that it flaps and that it will remain in place like so. So that is very simply the gimmick. I used a blue one in the demonstration video. The important thing is to not use a green one, so don't get out your green keepers or anything like that. That will not that will not work for this trick. That is a different trick altogether, as you will soon see. This being green is very, very important. So you're going to want to cut a playing card sized thing. So we're just going to cut it from there. You're now going to want to trim the edges right the way down so that it doesn't stick out of the side of the card. So you're going to want this to be able to be completely hidden underneath the card, but look like that from the other side. You're now going to want to puncture a hole in the card so that you can tear a hole in the middle of the card without having to fold anything. Normally you'd fold it and sort of tear a semicircle. I think this is a better way of doing it because it leaves the card with no folds, which is really, really nice. As you're tearing the middle out of this card, don't make it circular. Make it uneven, make it look like it is sort of rigid and, not rigid, ragged, that's the word I'm looking for. Ragged at the edges, like so. You don't want it to be a perfect circle. That will just not look good. And also, these ragged edges will really help with the trick, but again, we'll get to that in just a second. So that's looking pretty good. There we go. So the next step is obviously just tape across here. Finding the end of the tape is going to be a different trick altogether. And now you've got yourself a lovely little flappy green card gimmick. So these gimmicks are very, very useful for the thing you're going to want to do, and actually performing this trick is so easy. But afterwards, once you've performed it, the actual edit is probably the trickiest bit, but we're going to go in chronological order and focus now on the performance. How do you actually perform this trick? As I said, the performance of this trick is actually quite easy. There isn't really much to this, but there are a few convincers that I like to use that will really sort of heighten the effect of this and make it really, really nice. Make it a really, really sort of eye candy, visual, lovely trick. So the first thing I did in the performance was I had the card fully over the camera lens like this and I brought it back. That's just a little touch that I like to do. You don't have to do that in your trick. Remember, use the camera in your trick. Put it at the right angle, make sure the room is well lit, colour grade the video afterwards, all those things in the edit just to make it lovely and have some nice music and all of that. This is a trick that requires perfect conditions. So if your room is sort of dark and not very well lit, then the trick just won't look as good. You might not be able to tell on camera, but this room is very brightly lit. There's a lamp in the corner, there's two big studio lights, a light up top, then a hanging bulb, and an on-air sign that glows red. There's a lot of lights, there's about 7 different lights on me at the moment, so this room is very brightly lit, but in a way, that is what you want. Now if you don't have studio lights or anything, you can gather some lamps from around the house, maybe a torch, just light the environment in a nice way. Don't make it too shadowy at the back though, do have some lights facing on the background so there's not any awful shadows. All of that, you can search up good ways to light something for filming, you can do all of that, but that's just really important to make sure the trick looks good. And this is all about the viewer, remember, you've really only got one viewer that you're trying to impress when you're performing it, and that is the lens of the camera. Before we actually perform, the one really important thing to do that you cannot forget is this. Leave the frame. That is right, just leave the frame, just for a few seconds. Get a nice little few seconds of your background. It's going to be really important. If you forget to do it, then you've ruined the trick already. So just leave the frame, film your background for a few seconds in the lighting conditions you're going to use, and now you're ready to perform. That background thing we'll use in just a second. So, you've got the card, you can do the lens thing if you want. The important thing is to make sure that this flap of green is completely hidden by that lower section of card right there. So don't flash green there, because that's the bad thing to do. You're just going to bring it back without showing the green, and you can even put your finger through the hole. You can do that, you can do whatever you want to convince people that this is a normal hole. Now, you're going to want to set the green in front of it, but you can't do that just like that. You need to cover it up, because if you do this, in the edit there'll be a horrible sort of black almost line that sort of comes across it. It won't look good. So the only way of really doing it, unfortunately, is by covering it, and it just avoids the issue of getting ring-shaped shadows on here of, you know, cast by the card and all that. It would be very difficult if you didn't cover it. Maybe there is a way of doing it, but personally, I think it also adds to the sort of mystery as well, adds to like, ooh, what's about to happen? So it starts off like this with the green sort of sticking out at the back here. My hand comes over and covers the hole, and then my other hand pushes with the thumb to line that green up right there, just so that it is now covering the hole. Once that's all lined up and your hand is still firmly in the way, when this hand comes away, the card needs to be in a very specific position. Now, you need to start thinking about the edit at this point, because this is quite a difficult thing to do, because as you're performing this, you're going to need to imagine that something completely different is happening. Obviously, because this is a camera trick, the actual effect isn't really happening at this moment, so it is all about your body language and where you look and what you do to convince people that the effect is happening. So it's not just about the camera trick, you also need to look like it's happening, which is very, very complicated, but the thing to imagine is that this green bit is see-through. That is the thing to imagine. Just keep imagining that that green bit is now see-through. And also, the position of the card is absolutely crucial at this point, because what I can't do is take my hand away here, because I am in the way of it. Essentially, you're going to need to take the card away when there is nothing behind it. There can't be anything behind it except the background that you filmed. So you can't put your arm in the way like that, you can't put your hand in the way as it comes down. It needs to be just background all the time, which is very difficult to do in performance, but you'll hopefully get used to it. So at this point, the green bit will be showing the door, the background here, and then you want to take the pen, making sure you don't accidentally cross over at any point. It will feel ridiculous at this point because nothing is really happening, and that is the very beginning effect. I like to start with that in my video montage because I think that is the least impressive. And also when I did it, I played a little trick on people because I wanted people to think that it wasn't a camera trick. So I wanted to sort of plant a false method, which is something I don't do very often, but I wanted to plant a false method because I want people to think the first time they see it that it is just a colour that is the same as the background. I wanted people to think that it was just a white thing being put in the way of the hole and that the effect wasn't that good. Then the second time I did it, I showed a bit of the background and I moved the card around a bit just to then plant the idea of, oh my god, I was wrong the first time I saw it. It's not just a colour the same as the background. It's actually a hole. It's moving around. The background's moving. You can see a bit of the light switch. What is going on? At this point you can get creative and you can move the card around, and then you can do the hole in the hand, as I like to call it, the hole in the hand. You can even hold the card in that hand. Again, move it around. Make sure you don't step in the way of it because then your body will also be see-through and you don't want that. So just keep it out in the open, move it around a bit, and your filming is essentially done. That is the effect. Okay, so there we go. That is essentially the filming section over, but the most important bit is actually how to make this look magical, because at the moment it looks bad, doesn't it? It looks really bad. It looks like I've got a hole with a green thing in the middle. It looks awful, but in the edit it becomes something new, it becomes something magical, and it is magic. To anyone that says that this isn't magic, it evokes the same feeling in audiences. When people watch this who aren't magicians, who don't know anything about these sort of methods, when people watch this they freak out. There is no way it can be done. It is the same feeling as magic. It's just a different platform. Hopefully we can get past the fact that it is a camera trick. It's just another method. Let's not get hung up on it. So, over to the computer, over to the computer. I don't know why that's funny. It is a computer. Over to the laptop, and we are going to start the edit process. Okay, so hopefully, if this is working correctly, I am at the moment recording my screen so that you can see my screen and you can see me. So this is Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, I'm an Adobe user, I like Premiere Pro, but if you're using Final Cut Pro, then hopefully you're familiar enough with it that you know the same sort of tools. I think it has exactly the same sort of editing things, just in different places and with different sort of look to it. But you can still do this exact same thing on Adobe Premiere Pro, so you are going to need some editing software. Now, that is a little bit of a catch for some people, because I know a lot of people don't have this editing software, but if you're serious about making videos in the first place, I would recommend it. Even if it's just for Instagram videos or whatever, I still would recommend having a video editor. Even if you don't have a video editor, hopefully you will find this in some way interesting, because this is a different method to anything that I've sort of ever come across, really. I've certainly never seen green screen used in this way. So this is green screen. This is a very, very small green screen. Often when we think of green screen, we think of it as being a big thing. We think of it as being like, you know, around a person so that a person can look like they're anywhere, like a weatherman or something. The first thing you're going to want to do is take these clips right here, these ones on the bottom. And the reason there are so many of them is because those few seconds that I stood out of the way to show my background was only a few seconds, and obviously the clip of me doing the whole pen thing was a lot longer than that. So I've slowed these clips down here. So this is on 0.21% of the actual speed. I think it was actually a single frame. I used a single frame of me stood out of the way, just so there were no imperfections or wobbles if it was an actual video. So essentially it's a picture, but it's obviously just from the same video. I took one frame, I slowed it down, and that is the bottom layer right here. All of these clips are just that one frame slowed down. So if I delete this top one right here, you can see that that is just the background. If I move up and down, that is just background. Nothing going on there. If I bring that clip back, you can see that everything sort of fills in on top of it, and it looks like I've just appeared and the card and the pen. What's actually happened is the entire frame now is sort of been sandwiched on top. The only bit that is of that background that we saw earlier is that tiny little thing in the middle there. That is the only bit. So if we click on this and we go over to the effects that this clip has down here, you'll notice that it has Ultra Key. Now, Ultra Key is essentially the tool in your video software that is going to remove the green and make it see-through like we were imagining when we were filming it. So if I actually take that and delete Ultra Key, you will notice now that the clip returns to its normal green state. We have sandwiched that layer on top of the other layer, which is the background. So we have background, and then we have the video of me doing the whole thing with the green. We come over to effects and we search for Ultra Key. Or if you're a video editor, this might be a good tip for you. I actually have a little folder called Faves, and Ultra Key is in that. So you drag it across and you drop it, literally drag and drop onto the clip that you want. You go over to Key Color here. At the moment it is black because that is the default color. You click the little pen icon and we now have a little dipper, and we can take our little dipper and we can click right in the middle of that green, and you will notice that it becomes see-through. That in itself is a moment of magic for me in the edit. It is very, very satisfying when that happens. So now we have our green, and essentially we do that for every clip. So this is just a zoomed in one. Now, for a zoomed in one, slightly different thing, because we obviously still have the same, if we scroll down, we still have the same Ultra Key with the key color and all that. That is all the same. The only thing that's different is, you will notice that past Ultra Key, I've added another effect, which is camera blur. Now, this is a very, very tiny effect. Probably you didn't even notice, but that's a good thing about video editing. You never notice good editing. This camera blur thing is on 2%, which is not blurred at all. But if I remove that, you will notice that the thing inside the hole becomes very, very clear and very, very sharp. And if you just look at that image, maybe you wouldn't notice anything wrong with it, but for me personally, when I was editing this video, I looked at that and I thought, that doesn't look right, because the focus of the camera was on the card and the pen in my hands, so the focus was quite near to the lens, and obviously the background was quite blurred. But, and here's the interesting thing, when I was out of the frame, the lens obviously focused, not here because I wasn't there, but on the background. So the background is perfectly in focus through the hole where the green's been removed. So What I have to do then is add a tiny camera blur just to make it seem like it's still out of focus through the pen that obviously has been through the 0 zone or whatever the presentation of this trick is. That is tiny, minute editing, but it all adds to it and it all adds to the effect. So if through the hole was perfectly in focus, it would tell your brain something's wrong here. There's something going on. So the camera blur just helps to smooth over that and just helps the audience understand that, you know, we are looking through a solid object right now. The focus of the camera is the same. All of those tiny little things you don't even notice, they are all smooth and ironed out. And you end up with quite a fun video to watch. Certainly one of my favourite little edits I've done, and something I really had to share with you guys, because it is magic, it feels like magic, it looks like magic, and it's a lot of fun to perform. So hopefully you enjoyed performing this, playing around with the, you know, the concept. Maybe you can do other things with green screen and magic and all sorts. This was just something I came up with, and I hope you really enjoyed it. So there we go. So there we have it, that is the tutorial, and I really hope you enjoyed learning this trick. It is something very different to the normal sort of thing that I do, but if you enjoyed it and you want to see more things like this, I'm happy to do more things like this. I enjoyed making this one, even though it was a real challenge to edit and then re-edit and then film myself editing and then film, you know, I've not even edited this bit, but I've edited that bit. It's all very complicated for me to make. Just a quick reminder before I go that my magic book Plethora is currently on pre-order right now. It teaches more than 100 methods just for £25. So if you want to get your hands on that book, then make sure to do that. The link is in the description, or probably in the pinned comment if I've remembered to put it there. Please remember to click the thumbs up down below if you did enjoy this video, because that really helps me out. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe as well and join me on my video making journey. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
I think you're gonna have to be We're gonna have to go very soon. And soft.